Have you ever heard those whispers on the wind? Tales of fortunes buried with the long departed. For three friends, Leo, Sam, and Mike, those whispers became a siren's call, luring them toward a night they would never forget. This isn't just a story. It's a chilling account of what can happen when greed leads you to trespass on sacred ground. Our story begins in a quiet, forgotten town, nestled deep in the countryside, a place where time seems to stand still. The town had one claim to fame: the old Blackwood Cemetery, a sprawling, overgrown labyrinth of tombstones dating back centuries. Local legend spoke of a wealthy, eccentric recluse, Silas Blackwood, who was buried with his entire fortune. Most dismissed it as a fireside tale, a story to scare children. But not Leo. Leo was the ringleader, always chasing the next thrill, the next get-rich-quick scheme. He'd spent weeks poring over old town maps and folklore, convinced he'd pinpointed Silas Blackwood's final resting place. Sam, ever the loyal friend, was easily persuaded, his apprehension overshadowed by his trust in Leo. Mike, the cautious one, was the hardest to convince. "Guys, this is a terrible idea," he'd pleaded. "It's a graveyard. It's disrespectful." But the allure of instant wealth and the pressure from his friends eventually wore him down. So, one moonless night, armed with shovels, flashlights, and a hand-drawn map, the trio slipped through the rusty gates of Blackwood Cemetery. The air immediately grew heavy and cold, the silence so profound it was almost a physical wake. Ancient oaks with twisted branches loomed over them like skeletal sentinels, their leaves rustling with secrets. The beams of their flashlights danced nervously across weathered headstones, names and dates worn away by time. "It should be right here," Leo whispered, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and excitement. He pointed to a large, unadorned granite mausoleum, half swallowed by ivy. There was no name, just a cryptic symbol etched into the stone door, the same symbol from Leo's research. This was it, the resting place of Silas Blackwood. The stone door was heavy, sealed by time and neglect. It took all their strength to pry it open, the grinding sound echoing unnaturally through the graveyard. A wave of musty, cold air rushed out, carrying the scent of damp earth and decay. Inside, it was pitch black. Mike hesitated at the entrance. "I don't like this, Leo. I have a really bad feeling." "Don't be a baby," Leo shot back, his greed blinding him to the palpable sense of dread. "The treasure is just a few feet away. Are you in or out?" Reluctantly, Mike followed his friends into the suffocating darkness of the tomb. Their flashlights cut through the gloom, revealing a simple stone sarcophagus in the center of the chamber. There were no other decorations, no signs of wealth. Disappointment began to creep in. "Maybe the stories were just stories," Sam mumbled, his voice wavering. "No," Leo insisted, his eyes fixed on the sarcophagus. "It has to be inside." Ignoring Mike's protests, Leo and Sam inserted their shovels into the seam of the heavy lid. With a final, desperate heave, they pushed it aside. The screech of stone on stone was deafening. They peered inside, but there were no gold coins. no sparkling jewels. The sarcophagus was empty, not just empty of treasure, but empty of any remains. A wave of confusion and unease washed over them. "This doesn't make any sense," Leo stammered. That's when they heard it. A soft, scraping sound from the far corner of the mausoleum. They froze, flashlights snapping towards the noise. For a moment, they saw nothing but shadow. Then, a figure began to resolve from the darkness. It was tall and gaunt, dressed in tattered, old-fashioned clothing. Its face was a pale mask of shadow, but they could feel its eyes on them, cold, ancient, and filled with a profound malevolence. A guttural whisper slithered through the chamber, a sound that seemed to come from all directions at once. "Thieves, ... double quotes." Panic erupted. The three friends scrambled for the exit, tripping over each other in their haste. The scraping sound grew louder, closer, echoing their frantic heartbeats. They burst out of the mausoleum and into the graveyard, not daring to look back. But the horror followed them. As they ran, the graveyard seemed to change. The path they had taken was gone, replaced by a bewildering maze of tombstones. Whispers surrounded them, swirling on the wind, calling their names. Shadows danced at the edge of their vision, taking on monstrous forms. From the corner of his eye, Sam saw a small stone cherub on a child's grave turn its head and smile a wide, lipless grin. He screamed, a raw, terrified sound that was swallowed by the night. Leo, leading the way, suddenly stopped dead. A few feet in front of him, a fresh grave had appeared where there was none before. A simple wooden cross stood at its head, and on it a name was newly carved. Leo. He stared, paralyzed by horror. This wasn't just a haunting. The graveyard was claiming them. That's when Mike, who had been lagging behind, let out a choked cry. Leo and Sam spun around to see him on the ground, clutching his leg. A skeletal hand, pale and bony, had erupted from the soft earth and was wrapped tightly around his ankle. The ground around Mike was churning, as if something was trying to pull him under. "Help me," he shrieked, his face a mask of pure terror. For a split second, Leo and Sam were frozen, torn between self-preservation and friendship. But the sight of their friend being dragged into the earth snapped them out of it. They lunged forward, grabbing Mike's arms, pulling with all their might against the unholy force. The air was filled with Mike's screams and the low, angry groaning of the dead. With a final, desperate pull, they wrenched Mike free. The skeletal hand slipped back into the ground, leaving 5 deep, bruising marks on his ankle. They didn't wait to see what would happen next. Fueled by adrenaline and sheer terror, they ran blindly, no longer looking for a path, just running away from the encroaching darkness. The whispers grew louder, more menacing. The ground beneath their feet felt soft and unsteady, as if they were running on a bed of bones. Shapes darted between the tombstones, always just out of focus. They could feel the icy touch of unseen things brushing against their skin. The entire cemetery felt alive, and it was furious. Then, just as they felt their lungs would burst, they saw it, the rusted iron gate, silhouetted against the slightly less dark sky. It was their only hope. They sprinted the final 100 feet, their legs screaming in protest. They burst through the gate, not stopping until they were on the paved road, collapsing in a heap, gasping for breath. They lay there for what felt like an eternity, the silence of the road a stark contrast to the cacophony of horrors they had just escaped. When they finally found the strength to look back, Blackwood Cemetery was quiet and still, looking just as it had when they arrived. The ancient oaks stood silent. The tombstones were motionless. It was as if nothing had happened, but they knew. The bruises on Mike's ankle, the raw terror etched onto their faces, and the shared memory of that malevolent whisper were undeniable proof. They had disturbed something ancient and powerful, something that did not appreciate being woken. The three friends never spoke of that night again. They went their separate ways, the bond of their friendship shattered by the shared trauma. Leo, once so bold and greedy, became a quiet, reclusive man, forever looking over his shoulder. Sam moved away, trying to put as much distance as possible between himself and that cursed town. And Mike, he was said to have walked with a limp for the rest of his life, a constant physical reminder of the night he was touched by the dead. The legend of Silas Blackwood's treasure is still told in that small town, but now it's accompanied by another, more recent cautionary story about three boys who went looking for gold and found only terror. It serves as a stark warning to all who might be tempted by greed. Some places are not meant for the living, and some secrets are best left buried. The greatest treasures are not made of gold, but of life and peace of mind, things you can't get back once you've lost them in the shadows of a haunted graveyard. Thank you so much for joining me for this chilling tale. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the shadows. Stay safe out there, and remember to always respect the dead.